My wife, I want to acknowledge Sister Weems, who has so diligently worked to bring this together. And that's probably an understatement to say that her diligence and things that you have to deal with behind the scenes are just phenomenal. But I thank God for her and for her belief and trust in me. Amen. Just like anybody else, she could have said, I don't know. You know, we've had others and they didn't work out. But I thank God for your trust in me. We thank God for the staff here at New Birth who has just been so wonderful on today, and for every pastor that's here and every counselor that's here from the churches, the different churches. We thank you for being here today. Amen. As it has already been said, this is a tough subject, y'all. This ain't something you sit down with a cup of coffee and cross your legs and talk about. A lot of us would just rather not talk about it. But people are dying. People are hurting, people are confused, people are lonely, people are struggling, and they need the church to reach its hand out and help them up. And that's the job of the church. I want to talk about today briefly from this particular topic, if you will, the state of overcoming ministry. And I want to use a subtext from the 6th chapter of Isaiah. The question, whom shall I send and who will go for us? It was God who originally asked that question, but I feel that it's coming again today. Who shall I send and who will go for us? In my delivery today, I will do my very best to tell you as honestly as I know how what we are facing and what we need to do to expand and establish overcoming ministry for men, women, and youth who are struggling against homosexuality. I will tell you as honestly as I can what I have seen and what I have heard from these individuals, and I will share with you what God has spoken into my heart concerning this issue. Then, I will ask those of you who understand and embrace this great burden to commit yourselves to faithful action. Let me begin by citing some non-scientific statistical responses that you may not have been aware of. In 2003, Witness Ministries, the ministry that I founded, in conjunction with Lifeline's program, which is our discipleship program, developed and conducted a survey of black Christian men who were dealing some level with homosexual issues. We call the survey the TONUS report. TONUS is an acronym which stands for the Overcomers Needs and Assessment Survey. We asked these men who hailed from various locales and were of different age groups and Christian affiliations various questions relating to how they perceived ministry or the lack of ministry in predominantly black churches. And here's what they said. 36% of the respondents felt that having a mentor would help accelerate their healing and recovery from same-sex attractions. 87% of the respondents said they were members of a local black church. 60.6% of the respondents said their local churches were not helpful to them in overcoming same-sex struggles. 82.6% said they would like to see a program for same-sex attracted strugglers in their local church. 44% said the greatest hindrance to support from their local church is fear and misunderstanding of homosexuality. And then 72% of the respondents identified or self-identified as overcomers or overcoming homosexuality. What I gathered and got from these responses were that these men are not gay activists. They didn't come into the church to tear it up. They didn't come into the church to be down low brothers. But they were reaching and pressing to live the way God had intended for them to live. And that should be all of us with the same goals. Our goal is to live according to the way that God has intended for us to live. But sadly, these men felt they were left to press along by themselves, lumped together with the activists and the down low brothers as threats to the church. When I think about these disappointments that these men have expressed to me, and incidentally, I've been hearing their voices, both men and women, for the last 10 years that I've been in public ministry. I've been hearing their voices, listening to them cry over the phone because they could not talk to their pastors, listening to them express their disappointments, their sadness, their struggles, because they really needed to move forward with God, but they felt that there was no help for them. When I think about these men that I have heard from and these women that I've heard from, I think about two things. The first is my own painful memories of growing up in the church while I silently struggle to deal with my own mounting unnatural sexual feelings for other males. I know what it's like to be handcuffed to something you didn't ask for. I didn't get on my knees one time and ask God to make me homosexual. I didn't pray that prayer. But what I found out growing up was that something was growing inside of me that I didn't want. But I didn't know how to get rid of it. Anybody ever been there? Something is going on and you just don't know what to do with it. I know what that's like. Despite our best efforts to rid ourselves of it, it doesn't seem to leave you alone. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of funny looks and stares, whispers, people looking at you strange. I know what that feels like when you just want to come to church and tell God how much you want him in your life, but it seems like other folk, all they notice is the way you walk and the way you talk, and the way you hold your hand. Seems like that's all they notice. They don't notice that you're crying out for God. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be shunned because of what was happening with me and I didn't know how to deal with it. I know what it's like because I have experienced it. Unfortunately, I didn't know God then like I know God now. And consequently, I lost that initial battle. At age 19, I had enough of the church and their hypocrisy. Had enough of folk talking about me. Had enough of folk talking about, well, if you just pray, God will fix it. I did pray and he didn't fix it. I heard folks say, if you just come to church enough, God will work it out. I came to church every time the doors open and it didn't get worked out. I went on the fast. I went to the youth shut-ins. I did everything I knew to do or what they told me to do because I didn't want this stuff to be part of my life. For some reason, it didn't go. Matter of fact, it got stronger. The passions and the desires got stronger in me. I felt like, okay, God, I prayed, I fasted, I did all of this stuff. I tried to live the way I thought folk wanted me to live, and I'm sick of it. I'm not going to do it no more. So at age 19, I decided that I was gay, and I left the church. I left the church hating God. I left the church hating the church, and I decided that was the way I was going to be for the rest of my life because I was really tired of it. And you know something? It's a whole lot of me still out of there, still out here. Whole lot of young men and women that are tired of it. They're tired of being marginalized. They're tired of being talked about and whispered about and shunned. They're tired of it. And they're finding that there's something out there that's more attractive than what's in here. And saints, that's a shame. When folk find the world more attractive than God. Well, you may not like me today after I finish, but that's all right. I didn't know God like I know him now. I knew God through the church, if you understand what I'm saying. I knew the God the church told me about, but I didn't know God for myself. Because see, it took me having to go through the pig pen, down in the mud, eating the stuff that the pigs ate to finally realize that the God that I did not know was always there for me, that he had never left me, that he wanted me just as much as I wanted him. But I didn't see him there. I saw him through the church's eyes. I was like Isaiah when he lifted up his eyes, when King Uzziah died, he lifted up his eyes and he said, woe is me, because he could only see God through Uzziah's eyes. But when Uzziah was moved out of the way, he really saw who God really was. And that's the kind of God I want to serve. It's a God I can see for myself. I know what mama told me and daddy told me and church told me, but you got to experience God for yourself. Because can't nobody live it for you. I ought to get a few amens on that. I went into a wilderness wandering for 11 years as a self-identified gay man. I was not a sideline soldier. Whatever they offered, that's what I got into. I was like a kid in a candy store. I grew up in a church where we were restricted from doing anything. We couldn't go to football games. Some of y'all might have been raised like that. No football games, no parties, no nothing. All we could do was go to church. So when I got out there in the world and I saw all of that stuff, the dancing and the partying and the drinking, boy, I went wild. Church boy out there just kicking it up because it felt good to me to feel free. And that's what I felt. I felt free. I felt no longer restricted by the church. And I did everything I was big enough to do until I came to the end of myself. After 11 years of being who I thought that I was, I came to a point in my life where I felt lower than low. I felt like I had wasted 11 years of my life pursuing something that could never be caught.